Hey up me duck, it's Links Live's Natters time, where your stories come alive. From the fens to the coast. So grab a cuppa and relax with your go-to podcast for unique Lincolnshire stories.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Links Live's Natters podcast. Today's guest is Leanne Woodward, and she is the corporate sales manager for Kelham Hall, and she's going to tell us about lots of things. I'm not going to say too much. I'm going to let Leanne talk about her experiences and different things that go on within the hotel industry, and I'm really looking forward to this one because I'm hoping that we might get a few candid sort of things, and yeah, we'll see how this one goes. But hello Leanne and welcome.
Hello.
Tell me, what got you into the hotel business in the first place?
So I started in hotels in 2010, so 14 years ago.
Wow.
My first stint in a hotel was working as a receptionist at the Lincoln Hotel here in Lincoln. I worked there for about 2.5 years. Kind of gave me an insight into hotels. But the interesting thing is that when I went to university and studied hospitality and tourism, I swore I'd never work in one. And now I'm five hotels down. So
what happened there?
I just kind of fell into it, really. So yeah, that was my first stint in hotels. I was then given the opportunity to move to the States, and I worked in hotels in Florida, and then I came back and worked in hotels in London for 7 years, and then COVID kicked me out and I relocated back into Lincoln 4 years ago.
Yeah. Let's go back to the start of it and stuff like that. You say you started as a hotel reception and stuff. Let's take you right back. Yeah. How did you find sort of like working on reception stuff? Because people don't realise how much of a challenge it is.
I really enjoyed reception, just because you get to meet people, you get to speak to them, you get to kind of understand why they're there, why they're visiting. It was funny when I'd finish on a night shift at 11 p.m. and I'd see them again at 7 a.m. in the morning. They didn't think I'd slept, because in hospitality the hours obviously are long and they're not your traditional hours. So you have an 8-hour break between shifts, and that involves going home to sleep and starting all over again.
Yeah, because obviously you also mentioned you've travelled as well. How did you end up in the States, in Florida? How did that come about?
It was one of those kind of fluke moments. I was looking to travel, and I found a job online in Florida, and basically applied for it just out of the off chance, see what would happen. They got the application, said to Mum and Dad, I'm moving to Florida. And they were
How did that go down?
They were a bit gobsmacked, and they were like, what do you mean you're moving to Florida? I said, I'm moving to Florida. I don't know how long I'll be. I'll be 6 months to 3 years. We'll see how it goes.
And so they were a bit sort of like encouraging, or they were a bit sort of like, are you mad?
They were fine because they're kind of used to it. I've been travelling since I was 16 years of age, so they're kind of used to me kind of going with that idea of just going.
Yeah, how did you find working in the States? You sort of like, because they're very, how can I put it? They're more into their customer service, aren't they?
100%.
You know, it's all the tipping and everything else.
So where I worked was, it was a private members kind of hotel. So to be a member at this particular place came with quite an extortionate membership. So
they expect it.
Yeah, like you're paying $150,000 just to join.
Wow, I can't explain the expression that just went across my face then when Leanne just said that.
And then about $30,000 a year membership. So,
fine, I think we'll just have two. So
yeah, I was then kind of thrust into this world of money and high expectations, high standards, and then you go into the world of events where money's no object, and that just blew my mind. Yeah,
because obviously you were in the States for, did you say
a year?
A year.
Due to visa restrictions, I had to come back. But yeah, I
was over there. Would you have stayed?
Oh, happily. Yeah. I lived 20 minutes down the road from the beach. I lived an hour away from Miami, so it was a very nice life to have.
Yeah.
It was quite a fall from grace to come back, but unfortunately they wouldn't allow me to stay.
Yeah, because something obviously that's just come to my mind at the moment that we hadn't discussed is obviously they've just gone through hurricane again, haven't they?
Yeah.
And most of the buildings are hurricane proofed, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
Did you ever experience sort of like not a full hurricane, but
I was there during Hurricane Sandy that went all the way up the kind of
wow. How did that feel, sort of being in that building, knowing that you've got people to look after? And
it was pretty, like, it was quite scary when you see thunder and lightning, and you would literally see thunder and like lightning bolts probably 5 meters away from you. They were that like intense.
Wow. So you sort of understand how the people were feeling in Florida a few weeks ago and stuff with that big one when they were going, well, we're going to have this category level 5 and everybody's leaving the county, aren't they, in the cars.
And also there's only one real road in Florida, like
real road.
Yeah, there's like the I-95 that goes all the way from like south to north. So if you're stuck on that, it's like literally one motorway that goes from Florida to New York all the way up.
Wow, so that's an interesting insight for our listeners and stuff, you know, that haven't and don't know the States. You know, it's sort of like got to get out, and you've got to get out quick.
There's no real, because Florida's it's kind of like the boot at the end of like the US. So there's not really, they can't go like east or west.
Yeah, like we can go sort of like up on the A1 or the M1. You're stuck basically and stuff like that. And obviously you mentioned that you then came back and you went to London.
Yeah.
Where did you sort of like end up in London? What part of London? Don't tell us which hotel.
I was very lucky and I somehow found myself in Mayfair.
Wow. And there's quite a few hotels in Mayfair that we could name, but we're not going to. Yeah. We're not going to name the hotels and stuff. How did you find London?
I loved it. Yeah, I love London. It's a very busy city. Obviously, there's a lot going on, and there's just a real buzz around it. Like you can just be walking down the street, and there's just things like you just see people, and I think that's what I really enjoy. Is you see people from the moment you walk out the tube station to the moment you go to work, and there's just something going on all the time. Yeah, it's a very expensive place.
Yes,
but it's an amazing place to live without any responsibilities. So if you're kind of young, free and single, go to London. Mayfair is obviously quite an exclusive part of London. So I was very fortunate that I did work with some very wealthy people, and some very expensive events went on there, and the thing that I became accustomed to was the cars, the jewellery, that kind of level of wealth. A level of wealth that you don't really think exists, but it does. Mm-hmm. And obviously,
when you first saw that, did you think, oh wow, this is scary? You know, when you're seeing that level of wealth.
Yeah, it is scary to think that the price of my house belongs on somebody's car.
That's scary.
Or my entire kind of mortgage payment is sat on someone's finger. But at the end of the day, I think I just learned, as long as you treat them with respect and manners, and you're not kind of rude to them, they'll kind of be respectful back to you. So it was, I did learn a lot. And there's obviously a lot of stories that would come with that kind of level of wealth.
Any you can share without sort of like...
I can share a couple. One of them is my favourite story that everyone, if I ever say, they like kind of double take what I'm saying, because in Mayfair in particular, it's very popular for the Middle Eastern families to come over during Ramadan. And so when they come over, obviously they come en masse. And we had one particular family, I won't obviously name who they are, but they were Middle Eastern royal family, and they came over with their entourage. They took over 32 bedrooms for an entire 2-month period, paid in cash kind of situation. And one day the children were bored, and they'd had all the toys that they could want, and they rang down to concierge and said, can you find us something to do or something to play with? Like, it's raining outside, we don't want to go anywhere, we want something to come here. So obviously concierge, being the power that they are in London, they can open a lot of doors. 2 hours later, 3 tiger cubs appeared into the hotel.
Really?
Yeah, for these children to play with.
That's the wealth of power, that the concierge was able to get 3
tiger cubs
into the hotel. that the money bought. Wow.
And we had one.
I'm a bit lost for words. Bit lost for words, Leanne. To be honest with you. And we
had another individual whose daughter, at the height of One Direction's fame, his daughter he was prepared to fly them over to sing his daughter's happy birthday on her 18th birthday. He was going to stop them in a world tour for them to fly over to London just to sing happy birthday in person.
Wow, this is like a completely different world.
Yeah.
You know, for me to even like begin to think about something like that, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't even think about it.
Well, that's the thing. And the thing is, in that kind of world, anything is possible. If you've got the right money, the right contacts, anything is possible. So we had one lady in particular. It would take 3 days to set up just her bedroom. If you knew that she was coming in, it would take 3 days to set her room because she had to have it in a certain way. Are we talking like certain bed sheets, certain bed sheets? Yeah. All the covers had to be covered. All the counters had to be covered in towels. She would only smoke cigars from a certain place in Cuba. They got flown over. The water in her room. This is the most ridiculous thing. She would only shower in Evian water, so that all the plumbing had to be adjusted just for her.
How on earth
do you establish that you can shower just in Evian water?
Do you know what? I'm actually lost for words, Leanne. Yeah. It's sort of like, do you have to alter the whole plumbing system to get an Evian plumbing system in? You know, I'm actually really
that's the thing. I was in that world for 7 years, and nothing kind of ceased to amaze me. And I think when I see your expression and you see that, that's what I saw on a daily basis. So
yeah, I mean, were you experiencing the first time somebody came in, it's just said, I'd like to shower in Evian water. Yes, madam, we can make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I think for me it would be like, I know it's part of the job and stuff like that, and it's sort of like off the top of your head because it's part of the job. Yeah. But then sort of like deep down it's sort of like, I wouldn't even consider it.
No. And these people when they come with their staff, they come with the butlers, they come with security. You're getting certain Middle Eastern guests that won't speak to men, they will only speak to women. So when you've got a guest that will only have female staff and not male staff, and those kind of things have to be amended because it's just their requirements. Like some of them come in, the rooms have to be set a certain way, they have to have certain food. We have drinks flown in from all over the world, like water gets flown in from Hawaii for one particular guest.
Wow. I was going to ask you what your typical day looks like as in the hotel industry, because obviously now you're the sales manager at Kelham Hall. So what does an average day look like for you? Where do you start? Where do you finish?
Now or where I was?
Wherever you'd like to take it from.
So if I was to go back to hotels and events, so a typical day is, it can be anything. So you can be in from 7 o'clock in the morning to greet a client for breakfast. You could have a lunch meeting, you could have a dinner. And obviously in that world, there's an expectation that you have to be there for an arrival for a 7 o'clock breakfast. You also have to be there for the expectation that you're there until main course is served for a dinner. So you do have very long hours in that world. And there was one point in time when we had a shortage of staff in our team. I had 17 events in 1 week, including 3 weddings.
And how many staff?
Just me and one other person in our team.
To manage 17 events?
Yeah, to manage 17 events.
Wow.
And that's events that are breakfast, lunches, dinners, product launches, awards dinners.
Everything in between.
Everything in between, yeah. And then obviously for a wedding, there's a level of expectation as that. And these are very expensive weddings. I had one bride and groom that they probably, I think, spent in excess of 75,000 on their wedding day, and I rang them a year later to congratulate them on their first anniversary, and he rang and said, "Oh, did you not hear? The bride walked out and the groom 6 weeks later."
Oh.
So it kind of defines, my understanding is that money doesn't necessarily buy you happiness. It helps obviously a lot, but I was in that world for a very long time, so I saw a lot of things.
Yeah, just as I think I'm getting my head around this, you stunned me again with what like you've just said and stuff like that. It's sort of like, wow, money, like you say, it helps, but it doesn't buy you happiness.
Probably the most ostentatious example would be when, obviously in that, like in the London world, the look of an event is everything. So when flowers are a heavy part of an event, and we had a christening, I remember it was a Sunday afternoon. The christening's 3 hours? Like they have the christening and they have the lunch. They spent £25,000 on a table runner.
She's determined to
I'm just
sort of like done me into silence today, and there's not many people that can do it, but you're succeeding.
Thank
today. It's sort of like, wow.
Because the thing is that you see these hotels, and obviously, but no one really knows what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, we see the television programs, don't we? There's these television programs that are made. There was one made on
one of the hotels I worked at is on that television program. I'm not saying which one, but I'm saying it was on there.
There was quite a few. There's been 3 or 4 actually. I think that we've watched and stuff like that. And one of them had got I think they got Chris Martin in to play a piano on the roof.
Probably.
And I can't remember the name of that particular hotel, but they just had a big renovation in London on this particular hotel. And they put a water feature up there, and this person wanted
there's a number of big hotels that
and they flew Chris Martin in to play on the top of this hotel, everything else, and I was like, it just seems like money's no object.
No, it's not.
And the flooring, I think they spent nearly £3 or £4 million on flooring, because it was a Pacific oak flooring,
and it has to be Pacific depth and everything. So we had one of the hotels I worked at had a baccarat crystal chandelier that as soon as you walked into the hotel is £1 million just sat right in front of you.
Wow, I mean, I can only dream about some of these hotels, or even see them on the telly. When you see them on the telly, it's sort of like awe-inspiring, but to be actually in that environment and stuff like that. But like you say, you are at Kelham Hall at the moment, and you are the corporate sales manager. What like you say, how much sort of money do people normally sort of spend on events, and what's the most bizarre event do you think you've been asked to do? Because obviously you've got your weddings, christenings.
If I was to think about events, I've probably done in excess of 400 to 500 events that I've planned, but I think one particular event that stands out in my mind wasn't a wedding, it was a launch for a new whiskey.
Ooh, nice.
Which obviously came with its all these different elements to it, but it was a launch. I've never seen such precision. So it was a launch of 4 new whiskies for a particular brand. But the canapes had to complement the whiskey, so all the ingredients that were part of the whiskey had to be involved in the canapes. The glass that the glass that it was served in had to be a particular size. The ice that it was served with, it had to be particular measurement, and just the amount of precision that went into that event for little things that you would never even think. Like I had to specifically find somewhere in London that could sculpt balls of ice that could only be about this big and not this big. And
we're talking about golf balls?
Yeah, like golf ball size ice cubes that could go into a glass. And just, precision would be the kind of thing that, or I've had an event that they spent, I don't know, £100,000 just on one LED screen, just showing a presentation in a room for one day. So...
Wow.
It's a very different world, and I think that's why I like to kind of talk about it, because people don't really know about it. They see it on television, they see it in TV, they see it in magazines, but behind the scenes, it's just... Because you go to those hotels and you've probably got 400 to 500 staff
We can only dream.
You got 400 to 500 staff working behind the scenes at all times. So it was a very hard pill to swallow to leave that world, but COVID hit and I relocated up here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you actually. What's been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in your role, and how have you tackled them? And obviously you've gone sort of like, you've said you've left the bright lights of Florida and Miami and London, and you are in the dizzying worlds of Kelham Hall, which is, for anybody that doesn't know this particular building, I have looked it up and I have driven past it, and I am so jealous of Leanne because she works in this absolutely gorgeous building. Yeah. If you just describe Kelham Hall to somebody who's never been there.
So the only way I can describe it is if you've ever been to London and there's a hotel next to King's Cross St Pancras called the Renaissance, which is the same architect. So the same architect designed that hotel to the one in Newark. It's a 19th century country mansion, and it's I think the difference is that working in London, there's no greenery. So now I have 42 acres of land to play with, and I never had that in the city. So that is a nice refresher.
I was going to say, even though you've left London and Florida, you've got greenery to play with. You have grass.
I have grandeur. I have history. I think what I really enjoy is that when you go into these wonderful locations is the history behind it. So one of the hotels I worked at had probably 2,000 pieces of artwork that all tell a story. Or one of the other hotels I had the top suite was in excess of £20,000 a night, came with butlers, that kind of level. Everything has a story behind it, and I think that's what I enjoy. I'd rather sell something that has a bit of history than sell a cardboard kind of four walls and a ceiling.
Yeah, because I think, if I was looking, not that I'm going to, but if I was ever in that position, I was looking to spend stupid money. For me, it would be the history of the place. It's what
it kind of gives to you. It's what you feel. So Kelham Hall, where I am now, we're very fortunate that we do really, really well with weddings because it has a spectacular backdrop. And I think that's when people are spending a lot of money on one day, they want a spectacular backdrop to kind of remember. And I think everywhere I've ever worked at, I feel very fortunate that I've walked around that building and gone, I work here, because it kind of fills me with pride and passion. And I'm
getting that from you. That's coming over very, very much so, that you love what you do and, and you really want to go out there and create something very special.
You just want to be a part of something. So I've been thanked in wedding speeches on wedding days. How
do you feel about that when the bride and groom are up there and they say, I'd like to thank Leanne? Do you sort of have to sort of stand there and sort of just nod?
Yeah,
or do you sort of
because it's just, you kind of, everything that you've planned and spoken about has come to kind of execution on the day, and it's gone seamlessly. I can't say it went the same from when I got married, but when you're planning an event that is so special to a lot of people, and I think what I pride myself on is that I like to kind of treat a person not just like a number or a monetary value. That I want to be treated how I want to. I take an investment in them as a couple or as a person, get to know them, get to know their story, what the event's for, where it's been, the audience. And I think I pride myself that even, 3-4 years later, I've still got bride and groom that I'm friends with because I played a part in their day. And
that's
you're never going to get away from that. So.
That's lovely, to know that you're part of somebody's day. When you get it right, and you're just like, well, Leanne did this for me. Leanne created that memory. Leanne is my memory.
Yeah, exactly.
If you look at it like that.
At the Thrive Tribe, we believe everyone deserves the chance to soar. Whether you're an individual seeking self-improvement or a business aiming for success, we've got you covered. Personalised coaching. Unlock your potential with our expert coaches. One-on-one guidance tailored to your unique goals. Learn flexibly online. Boost your skills from Microsoft Office mastery to work-based expertise. Lifelong learning? We've got the keys. So whether you're an aspiring professional, a business leader, or simply hungry for growth, join the Thrive Tribe today. Visit thethrivetribe.com and let's ignite your journey. Remember, it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. The Thrive Tribe, where potential meets possibility.
Hey there, Lincolnshire business owners. Struggling to be found online? Still buried on page 3 of Google? Wondering if anyone's even looking? Well, stop stressing and join the Lincolnshire Business Directory. It's completely free to join, and you'll finally start getting noticed. Think of it like shouting from the hilltops, but digitally. Want to really make a splash? For just £99, you can upgrade to a premium listing and get in front of more eyes. You'll be the talk of the town. It's super easy. Pick a plan, create your listing, and boom, you're live. Customers will be finding you faster than you can say SEO. Head to www.lincolnshirebusinessdirectory.co.uk. Don't miss out. Your customers are waiting.
Obviously, there has been dark times in the hotel industry, just sort of in the last few years. Well, dare we talk about COVID and how COVID did sort of damage to the world and to the hotel industry as well, didn't it?
Yeah, that was a hard kind of pill to swallow because it was a very strange time. I remember it was obviously in March 2020 and we all got sent home to work from home, and everyone was like, see you later, we'll see you in a couple of months. And then I never saw any of them again because I lost my job. And it kind of gave me a moment of reflection, and I went in a very different avenue when COVID hit, when we relocated up here and tried something completely different, which I really enjoyed, but it wasn't for me. So I was a carer for 3 people with
It's nice to know about the person like you, where, you know, because obviously, like you say, you'd been in Florida, London, all the rest of it.
Yeah, I've had all these glitzy times, and I think when it...
sort of like, I went into being a carer,
Yeah,
you know.
I became a carer for 3 months, and I absolutely idolised that job, and I had a lot of respect for the people that do it full time. It basically brought me back to appreciating basic things. So I was helping people. The highlight of the day would be going for a walk or watching their favourite film, and all of that glitz and glam and pressure just totally disintegrated. And it, for the 3 months that I did it, because I was only going to get part-time work, so it was never going to support full-time wages, but it just helped me kind of realign, I suppose. Like, I went from a very high-speed, high-pressured job for 7 years to doing that, and I was like, oh, and I could have done it full-time. Unfortunately, it didn't pay enough to cover a mortgage payment, so I then found myself in a completely different role, and I was a call taker for the police, for Lincolnshire Police, for 6 months, which again is a completely different level of pressure. And I was like, oh, I can do this. I'm a people's person. I can talk to people, but I can't talk to those people. I can't talk to people. Just the level of kind of, I suppose, abuse that you'd get on the phones for the police. Like, no one calls the police for something nice. So that was a hard pill to kind of swallow, because I tried it. I really tried to be successful at that role, and it just wasn't me, because I wasn't enjoying being the voice at the end of the phone. I'm enjoying. You
strike me as a very sort of people person. You know, sort of like, I like to sort of make people happy. I will go to the ends of the earth. This is what's coming across. I will go to the end of the earth, you know, to like achieve something for you and be...
I just want to be, I just want people to know who I am and know that I'm there for them. And I think being at the voice at the offender and the abuse that you get as a police call handler is just not for me. So I came out of that and then went back into hotels, and I worked and then I've worked at a number of hotels in Lincolnshire again.
Because like you say, it's a bit different coming from the glitz and glamour back into sort of Lincolnshire, whereby it's a total different kettle of fish altogether again, isn't it?
Yeah, but then it's kind of one of those situations that my life has gone in a different direction. I've now got a daughter, so I would never be able to work the hours that I did and have the lifestyle that I did in London with her. So now I've kind of got more of a work-life balance than I did down in London. You
restocked and you sort of took stock and went, this is, you know, after you've done your caring bit, you sort of like, I need to change things up here and realise that... I got to a point in part of my career in London, I had a burnout, and because I was fortunate enough that in hotels in London that you get fed, so they invest heavily in their staff. So I would have breakfast, lunch and dinner at work, which is obviously a good thing for my bank balance, but not a good thing for work-life balance. So I'd be going in sometimes at 7:30 and finishing at 7:30, which I understand 12-hour days are for a lot kind of expectation, but when you're doing the level that you are and trying to manage, so like imagine 17 events requires 17 different organisers plus additional inquiries and contract. There was just a lot
to handle. So
yeah, because I don't think people realise it's like building a house when you do an event. You know, you've got to start obviously from the basics. That's how I see it when I've organised something. It's like, right, okay, I've got to get my permission for this, then I've got to get all my ingredients and everything else.
But it's everything, you've got a lot that comes with it. It's obviously, there's a lot of moving parts to an event, and so it's understanding that, and you've got some organisers that do this as a job, they know exactly what they're doing, but then you've got others. I've had brides that would email me at 2-3 o'clock in the morning going, Leanne, I'm really worried about the tablecloths, or I'm really worried about what linen's going to be, or so can't come. And it's just, some people just, because it's an event, can be a very expensive day, so they want to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible. So if something, I've had brides that would send me those one-line emails, but I'd get 15 versions of them. Those kind of just worries, and at the end of the day, you just have to go, everything's fine, like we've got everything in order.
So basically that's a typical day, isn't it? In your sort of like, I'm getting the same email, different bride, same email, that I'm worried about this. And
I'm worried about, like, can you confirm that you can offer something for someone that's got an allergy? Yes, we can. Can you confirm that we can serve this type of bit? Yes, we can. Can you confirm that we can do that? Yes, we can. And it's just, anything is possible in this world. You just have to kind of make the provisions to do that. So
wow. I'm actually really quite shocked, you know, at what sort of things you have to do and stuff. Well, I'm not, and I am, you know, because like some of it's common sense, but then the other stuff is sort of like, wow, you have to be able to do jack of all trades in your job.
There's a lot of moving posts, and I speak, especially when back in the big hotels, you're working with a lot of different departments as well, so it's not just, I imagine
the food is a big one.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I created quite a good relationship with the chef, so I would kind of say good morning, good afternoon. Oh, is there anything left over that you're not going to serve today? And I just take it up to the kitchen, because we'd have events where, like, we'd have big corporate breakfast meetings, and they'd come in and they'd order full English for 100 people. At like 9 o'clock in the morning. The majority of the time they've eaten breakfast before they go to these events, but you cook a full English for 100 and hardly any of it gets touched. And I really hate food waste, and in that world there's a lot of food waste. So I would be quite popular around event times when I'd know they'd be finishing, and I'd know that there'd be leftover food, and I just like take it all up to the offices and go, does anybody want some breakfast or some pastries? And they're like, yes, because no one else would do that. Like I would make it my mission to be friends with everyone in every department. Yeah,
because you don't know at what point you're going to need somebody, or an emergency booking could come in and just say, I've got this potential booking, can you do it?
I mean, I've had it in the past where I've had an event. I'll give you an example. I had a call on when was it? It was on a Saturday. It was an event on the Tuesday, and it was for a very high profile diplomat that came into the hotel and had like a meeting for 100 people. But the level of security that had to come with him, like the security detail that came with him, like he came in with 15 armed guards, and then the Met Police had to do a full-on sweep of the room to ensure that there was nothing in the room. He had to have bulletproof lecterns, bulletproof everything, and that had to be sorted within 2 days. That kind of turnaround can happen.
Wow, and she's done it again. It's you know, like you say, I've only seen these things on telly.
Yeah.
You know, I've only dreamed these things on telly, but you've lived them.
Mm-hmm.
You've lived these.
I feel very fortunate that I have, and I feel, and this is that I speak to people and they're just like, Leanne, you should write a book because you've got so many different stories and insights into what happens behind the scenes. And I have, and people were just like, they're just shocked because you say what I say. One thing, like I'll give you an example that might blow your kind of mind, is in that kind of world, when you get particular bottles of wine. We had a bottle of wine in our cellar that was £32,000 for a bottle.
A bottle?
One bottle.
One bottle.
To be opened.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah. And now I find myself in a completely different world and a completely different life. But I feel very fortunate that I had that experience to bring to the table, because I've got high expectations kind of anywhere I go. I'm a nightmare to travel with if I go to hotels because I've got a quite high expectation.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, how do you pick a hotel?
It's very hard. I can assure you, my husband there are because I just know what to expect and what level of service should be there, and obviously I don't have the same budget as that level anymore, but
that's the thing, isn't it? When you worked in a particular industry and stuff like that, it's sort of like hard not to
I kind of like self kind of have to make myself don't criticize, but there are certain things that I'm just like we went to one hotel and they left the room service tray outside the room for like 3 days, and I was like, I've walked past mouldy food for 3 days and no one's even thought to put that up.
And it's just sort of biting your tongue, and it's like your husband's like, walk away.
Yeah, he's like,
leave it.
No, he does. He's like, Leanne, if we need to complain, can you say anything?
That's it. Just pass it over.
Yeah, just pass it over to me. I'll be like, I'm really sorry. I know that obviously, like, I'm in the industry. I know, like, and they're like, oh no, don't worry, it's fine.
One of the other things I'd like to talk about is COVID and its impact on the hotel industry. And obviously it caused lots of changes within the industry within that time. How do you think guests were reacting to it? Especially some of the, shall we say, the more well-heeled people? Yeah. You know, how did they react to...
I think it was really hard because obviously hospitality just shut down. It shut down within an instant of obviously COVID happening, because you were no longer allowed to go to hotels, you can no longer eat in restaurants, you can no longer go to spas, you can no longer have events. And I think what I understand is that obviously the very well-to-do, suddenly everything shut down for them and they could no longer have the butler service, they could no longer have the fine dining dinners, and I think they struggled, and obviously our hotel struggled, because I think when COVID kind of eventually lifted and you were allowed to eat out and go out again, entire floors weren't open because all the staff had been let go. So I think COVID, from a hospitality point of view, a lot of people just got rid of most of their staff on the pretense of like, oh, it's going to take a while to get them back, and then obviously 2 months later it opened up again. But you're then having to navigate a world where you're trying to host an event but you have to stay 2 meters apart, or you're not allowed to sit next to each other, and obviously the traditional conference or meeting, you're next to one another, so suddenly you had to understand your capacities. If you was to host an event, how many people can fit in the room socially distanced?
Did you find it like sort of saying sort of like, I'm really sorry, we can't give you what you want?
Yeah, and I think the hardest thing is the wedding industry. So for I had friends that were hit with COVID weddings that were suddenly they were planning weddings for 150. They then had to maybe reduce it down to 30 people, and they were not allowed to have an evening disco, you weren't allowed to have evening entertainment. And the thing that baffled me more than ever was that you were allowed to go to the supermarket with 500-600 people, but you would not be allowed to host a wake or an event or a wedding.
But you're in a supermarket.
But you're in a supermarket, so you're hosting a wedding, you've got 30 people, you're not allowed an evening, you're not allowed a DJ. But I can go to the supermarket with 600 people, and that's fine. That was what the strangest thing was, is that you had brides in tears that they're not allowed to have the wedding that they want, or you'd have funerals that you'd only have 6 people, and that kind of was quite of a big shock, really, because imagine like if somebody passed away during COVID, you can no longer have a wake. They were kind of sent off just as if nothing had ever happened. And
I heard sort of quite a lot of people saying, especially around the funeral, not being able to celebrate that person
to have 6
afterwards
people,
was
to have a funeral for 6 people. What if there's 7 of you in your family? But there was a lot of mixed guidance, and I think hospitality took a while to kind of come back, because also the thing is that all the hotel rooms had to be given 24 hours between people because of sterilisation. So if you had somebody check in, you had to wait 24 hours to resell that room.
So you couldn't resell the room
You couldn't resell the room.
At the moment, it's like one in, one out, check in, check out.
And all the doors had to be sealed to ensure that they've been sanitised correctly, and there was hand sanitizer everywhere, and it was just that kind of, you weren't like, spa treatments were a no-go for a long time.
Wow.
Because physical contact wasn't allowed, so...
So the hotel industry has really sort of had to pull itself back up again.
Yeah, and the problem as well is that when COVID hit, everyone was not from the UK suddenly found themselves going back to their original countries and then found alternative employment. So they really struggled to bring everyone back to the jobs that were, like, I had a concierge team that went from 12 to 2 because they couldn't get the staff back in order to accommodate. But then you still have to maintain a level of 5-star service despite the fact you're on skeletal staff.
Wow. Do you find sort of like any trends have stayed in COVID, or everything has sort of gone? Or
I think the only trend I can think of is that because in a sense you were kind of caged for 2 years in terms of events and like weddings, the weddings are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger now, because I think they had 2 years of being really small and they're like, no, I want to have the biggest wedding I can have. So where I work now, we have weddings, the Asian wedding market, that are 600-700 people.
Explain the Asian wedding market to somebody who doesn't know about an Asian wedding.
So there's obviously different religions in an Asian wedding kind of demographic. So you've got kind of Hindu, Muslim and Sikh. Muslim weddings don't drink, Hindu and Sikh will drink, but they're just very big weddings. They're very colourful, they're very ostentatious, they're all about how everything looks. I've never seen the level of decoration that goes into those weddings is unprecedented.
Do you think it's a challenge for you when somebody says, hello, I'd like to book an Asian wedding, or do you go, oh yes?
No, yes, that's it's a good thing. But what I find interesting is that, I was saying this to a colleague, like, I think there's going to be a generation, or in 20 years, where these large weddings won't exist anymore, because it's my generation, it's obviously current generations, their parents and their grandparents are paying for it, and they're happy to pay maybe £50,000 to £75,000 on a wedding day. I can't see my generation saving that amount of money to spend on a wedding day in the future.
You know, what do you enjoy most about the hotel industry? That's where I was going with it, because obviously you said about the Asian weddings being colourful.
Yeah,
and grand.
I think I just really enjoy, in hospitality in the hotel industry, there's just a buzz. There's something always going on. So no matter if you finish at 5 o'clock, there's something always happening. And I think you'll walk down a lobby and there's something going on in a restaurant, or there's something going on in a bar. There's always people around and it's never quiet, even when you're going to sleep. And you think around Christmas time and everything, you'd have Christmas installations that would be, you'd go to bed and they'd suddenly appear. There's people working around the clock in a hotel.
Wow.
And there's one, I'll give you another thing that will blow your mind. There's one hotel in London where you'll have there's one staff member, I know this for a fact, that he spends 8 hours during the night just squeezing orange juice, to have freshly squeezed orange juice for breakfast.
There's somebody in the hotel industry that just squeezes oranges all evening.
Yep. Freshly squeezed orange juice for breakfast.
I know. In our PR for this one, when we said we were interviewing and stuff, and we were hoping you were going to reveal a few sort of secrets and stuff, but never did I imagine you were going to say there's one man that literally squeezes oranges for the most of the night to get
freshly squeezed orange juice for breakfast.
I hope it's really nice orange juice.
£12 a glass, so yeah.
Future at Kelham Hall. What can we look forward to? What events have you got coming up for the general public?
So general public, we've got a lot of Christmas dinner parties. What we do really well at Kelham is that we do a lot of immersive dining. So we've got a Faulty Towers dining experience. We've got a murder mystery events.
Wow, and these are open to the public?
Yeah, these are open to the public.
And people can find the details on your website,
yeah,
which will...
So like we had a Live and Let Die James Bond themed dinner last
week. Oh, how marvellous.
But they're just, it's to kind of in keeping with the location really. So it does, we do really well with events to the public.
Wow.
And then hopefully bedrooms will be coming at some point. So accommodation will be provided in the next, however, we don't know when it's going to start. Let's
hope that's going to be on the cards, and you can get that one going, because I know loads of people would love to stay there, wouldn't they? They would, and also for your hotel guests as well. What a brilliant thing to finish on. Hoping that Kelham, you will get your bedroom.
We will get bedrooms at some point. We just don't know when they're arriving. So.
Okay, and where can we find details of Kelham Hall? Do you have a Facebook website?
Yes, we've got Facebook and Instagram. So it's therenaissance@kelhamhall.com.
Oh, Leanne, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for making me sort of like sit here and pull faces in a sort of like good way and shocked way, and sort of like thinking, wow, I know these things go on, but then for you to actually live them. So thank you so much for your time, Leanne.
Thank you very much.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. A huge thank you to Leanne from Kelham Hall for joining us. It's been brilliant to have her on and hear all about her work. And of course, a big shout out to my fantastic technical team for all their hard work in making this episode happen. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on the Links Live Natters podcast.